Hello brothers and welcome to Sigma Old Man Channel. The greatest trick evil ever pulled was making you ask the wrong questions. Let that sit in your mind for a second. Because while the world obsesses over answers, Sigma males are the rare breed who focus on something far more dangerous. The questions evil is terrified you'll ever ask. In fact, according to behavioral intelligence analysts, questions that challenge power structures are 10 times more likely to be ignored, redirected, or labeled as conspiracy, not because they're false, but because they get too close to the real architects of the lie. And that's where Sigma males thrive. They're not loud. They're not interested in debates. They're not wasting breath in echo chambers. Instead, they're slipping through the cracks, bypassing gatekeepers, and asking the kind of questions that make evil shift uncomfortably in its expensive chair and say, "Who sent him?" These aren't your average, "What's your biggest weakness?" interview questions. No, these are intellectual Molotov cocktails. And the moment they're asked, the room changes, the masks start to crack, and the system starts glitching like a rigged slot machine. So buckle up, because you're about to discover the 12 ways Sigma males ask the questions evil doesn't want answered. And if you're not ready to challenge everything you've been told, you might want to fake a phone call and leave now. Seriously, we won't judge. Number one, they don't ask why, they ask who benefits. Most people, when they're trying to get to the truth, ask why. Why did this happen? Why would someone do that? It sounds reasonable, even logical. But that's exactly why it's a trap. Because why invites emotional detours, moral justifications, and circular answers that go nowhere. Evil thrives in that fog. It knows how to twist motives, cry victim, spin narratives, and bury the truth under a mountain of fake empathy. Sigma males don't fall for that. They don't ask why, they ask who benefits. This single shift changes everything. When something looks suspicious, out of place, or orchestrated, the Sigma doesn't care about the emotional drama playing out on the surface. He follows the money, the power, and the outcome. He asks, who walked away richer? Who gained control? Who needed this to happen? And more often than not, the answer isn't some random accident or emotional outburst. It's cold, calculated, strategic, hidden behind a mask of chaos. This is what evil fears. It doesn't mind being judged. It minds being understood structurally. Because once someone starts mapping who benefits, they're following a trail that leads right to the architects of manipulation. And Sigma males are dangerous because they do this without blinking. They see that behind every major scandal, crisis, or moral panic, there's usually someone cashing in, politically, financially, socially, and they call it out. Evil doesn't want to be exposed like that. It wants the world to stay distracted with debates about fairness, good intentions, and personal feelings. It wants the questions to stay soft, philosophical, and pointless. But Sigma males step outside that maze and ask the only thing that actually matters. Who made this happen? And what did they get out of it? That question doesn't just rattle the surface. It drills down into the rot beneath the illusion. And once you see who benefits, you can never unsee it. The lie starts falling apart. The mask starts slipping, and suddenly all those coincidences start to look like parts of a machine, one built to serve someone else entirely, and that's when evil starts to sweat, because the Sigma didn't fall for the story, he followed the outcome. Number two, they don't argue with narratives, they undermine the source. Most people waste time wrestling with the story. They get caught up arguing over headlines, fact checks, viral tweets, or some trending outrage. Sigma males, they don't play that game. They don't waste energy debating what was said. They go for the throat and ask, who's saying it, and why are they being given a microphone? That's where the truth hides. Because evil doesn't just spread lies, it manufactures the storytellers. It funds the platforms, picks the experts, and scripts the talking points. The goal isn't to inform, it's to control the narrative. Sigma males understand this instinctively. So instead of yelling back and forth with someone quoting a study or parroting a headline, they look past the content and dissect the source. Who paid for that study? Who owns that network? What's their track record? What are they not saying? Once you follow that thread, the whole story unravels. Sigma males don't fall for surface-level information warfare. They know a fact can be technically true, but strategically placed to serve an agenda. They know statistics can be shaped to mislead. They know every official narrative is polished in a boardroom before it's fed to the public. And they're not afraid to pull back the curtain because they know the wizard behind it all is the one truly pulling the strings. This makes them dangerous. Evil hates being identified. It prefers to operate through layers, institutions, influencers, foundations, friendly faces. So when a Sigma male starts asking, "Wait, who's behind this voice I'm hearing?" things get tense, people get nervous, the mask starts to twitch. Because once you realize the storyteller is compromised, everything they say becomes suspect. And when one source collapses, the dominoes start falling fast. That's why Sigma males never fight the narrative head-on. They just reach underneath it and pull out the power cord. No shouting, no panic, just one cold question at the right time. And suddenly, evil is exposed. Not because its story was wrong, but because someone finally dared to question where it came from. Number 3, they frame curiosity as casual, but it's a trap. Sigma males understand that direct confrontation puts people on guard. If you walk into a room with a flashlight shouting, "Show me the truth," the liars just scatter into the shadows. But if you walk in like you're just curious, like you're casually connecting dots for your own amusement, people drop their defenses. That's the trap. It starts with something light. "Hey, just wondering, why did that report disappear right after the merger?" Or, "Not saying anything, but isn't it weird how all the witnesses changed their stories on the same day?" No accusation, no hostility, just a man thinking out loud. And that's what makes it lethal. Because people don't brace for impact when the tone is soft. They feel safe. They relax. They talk too much. What evil doesn't understand is that Sigma males are never just curious. Their questions are calculated, calm, almost innocent. But they're aimed with precision, like darts to weak spots that most don't even know exist. It's psychological jujitsu, using softness to pull truth out of the shadows. By the time the person on the receiving end realizes they've been caught in a slow-motion interrogation, it's already too late. They've revealed inconsistencies, exposed motives, and stepped right into their own contradictions, all while thinking they were having a harmless chat. This is why Sigma males never come off as threatening. That would ruin the whole setup. They're the guy in the corner of the room asking, "Hey, quick question," while chaos quietly brews under the surface. Evil underestimates them because they don't act like a threat, until suddenly they are. And when the mask finally slips, it's not a dramatic reveal, it's a quiet unraveling. One innocent question at a time. That's how Sigma males operate. They don't swing hammers, they loosen bolts, and by the time the machine collapses, they've already left the room, still just curious. Number 4, they question the system by studying its cracks. Most people look at the system and see what they're supposed to see, what's loud, polished, and neatly packaged. The official story, the shiny surface. Sigma males, on the other hand, aren't impressed by the front-facing illusion. They study the gaps, the dead zones, the parts of the system no one wants to talk about. They're not distracted by what's being said, they're obsessed with what's not being said. Where others see a smooth timeline, the Sigma sees a suspicious jump. Where others accept redacted documents, the Sigma asks, what was erased and why? He notices when entire regions of history are glossed over, when patterns in data are abruptly cut short, or when certain topics are always conveniently off limits. He pays attention to what gets banned, flagged, memory holed. To him, silence is never neutral, it's engineered. And it's in those silences that the real questions start to form. The kind of questions that make institutions sweat and power structures crack. Because Sigma males don't ask about what they're shown. They ask about what was intentionally hidden. Who decided this part didn't matter? Who made sure this version of the story was the only one allowed? That's what makes their questions radioactive. They're dangerous not because they're loud or rebellious, but because they're precise, surgical, and impossible to unhear once asked. These questions don't just poke holes. They reveal that the entire system is stitched together with carefully placed omissions. And the Sigma knows that once you find one crack, more will follow. He doesn't rage against the machine, he studies the rust in its joints. He asks, why does this always fail in the same way? Or why is this exception the norm in certain places? These aren't conspiracy theory questions. They're pattern recognition triggers. And evil hates patterns being exposed because patterns lead to architects, and architects can be held accountable. Sigma males make people uncomfortable because they don't take the structure at face value. They dissect it, not for fun, not for show, but because they know truth lives in the cracks, not in the script. And once they start asking questions from inside those cracks, the whole system starts to shift uncomfortably. Number 5, they ask questions that shouldn't exist. There are questions society quietly agrees never to ask, not because they're answered, but because they're dangerous, taboo, off limits. The kind of questions that, if spoken out loud, don't just challenge the status quo, they make the room go cold. Sigma males ask those questions without hesitation. They don't just think outside the box, they ask who built the box, who profits from it, and what happens if we burn it. While others tiptoe around sensitive subjects, afraid of being cancelled, ridiculed, or exiled, Sigma males walk straight into the fire. They ask things like, what if this entire narrative only exists to pacify the masses, while a select few extract power unchecked? Not to shock, but because they genuinely want to know. That curiosity is honest, and that's what makes it deadly. These aren't edgy questions for the sake of rebellion. They're carefully aimed at the foundations that society pretends are too sacred to question. And when Sigma males press on them, those foundations start to wobble. People get defensive, systems get reactive, power structures tighten their grip, because deep down everyone knows those questions aren't baseless. They've just been buried. The Sigma isn't bound by collective fear. He sees the emotional force field built around certain ideas, religion, government, academia, science, morality, and he steps right through it. He asks, who declared this untouchable? Who benefits from it remaining sacred? And what if it's not sacred at all, but just a clever shield for something predatory? That's when the mask starts to tear. Evil doesn't fear noise, it fears clarity. It fears someone smart enough to ask the unaskable, not with rage, but with calm, surgical intent. That's what Sigma males do. They don't play by the script. They throw the script in the fire and ask, now what? And once that question is out there, it can't be taken back. It spreads. It infects the minds of others. It forces reflection, discomfort, and sometimes even full-blown collapse. Because when you dare to ask what you were never supposed to, even the most powerful lie begins to tremble. Number 6, they study behavior, not words, and ask based on discrepancy. Words are cheap. Anyone can rehearse a lie, memorize a script, and deliver it with a straight face. That's why evil relies on language. It's the easiest tool to manipulate. But Sigma males don't fall for speeches or sound bites. They study behavior. And not just in the obvious ways. They're watching subtle shifts, a flicker of the eyes, a pause too long, a sudden breath held mid-sentence. They catch what most people miss. When someone tells a story, the Sigma listens with one ear and observes with both eyes. He notices when the mouth says, I'm fine, but the fists are clenched. When someone claims confidence, but their shoulders cave in. When a politician says, we have nothing to hide, but their pupils dilate like they're walking into a crime scene. These micro-reactions are signals, and Sigma males treat them like red flags nailed to truth's coffin. They don't call it out immediately. They let the story play out, let the liar get comfortable. But in the back of their mind, they're calculating. Then, without warning, they ask a question that goes straight for the glitch. Why did your tone shift when you mentioned that name? Or you smiled, but your eyes went dead. What's really going on there? These aren't accusations, they're X-rays, and that's what makes them devastating. Because most people aren't used to being seen on that level. They think they're hiding behind a perfect explanation until the Sigma peels back the surface and exposes the tremor underneath. It's surgical, calm, and terrifyingly accurate. Evil panics when it's studied like this. It's used to controlling language, spinning narratives, manipulating emotions, but when someone's watching your body instead of listening to your words, the mask slips fast. And Sigma males are relentless with that. They don't trust what's said. They trust what's leaked through the body. They ask based on the mismatch. When energy doesn't align with expression, they don't ignore it. They pounce. And one well-aimed question based on that split-second flicker can dismantle an entire performance. Because when truth and body part ways, the Sigma shows up like a ghost in the machine, calm, curious, and holding a question that cuts deeper than any accusation ever could. Number 7, they don't ask to understand, they ask to corner. When most people ask questions, they're genuinely trying to understand. They want clarity, closure, or connection. Sigma males don't ask for any of that. They already understand, often better than the person they're talking to. Their questions are bait, a slow trap. They're not there to learn. They're there to watch the lie unravel in real time. The Sigma walks in with the truth already mapped out. He's done the research, studied the behavior, connected the dots. Now he's just testing the story, not because he's unsure, but because he wants to see how deep the liar's delusion runs, or worse, how much they're willing to fabricate under pressure. Every answer they give is another inch of rope, and the Sigma lets them pull it tight around their own neck. He'll start off casual. So, when exactly did that happen again? The liar answers. The Sigma smiles. He already knows it didn't. Interesting. And who else was there? Another answer, another contradiction. What's terrifying is how calm it all is. No confrontation, no emotional charge, just clinical curiosity, like a surgeon watching a patient diagnose themselves with something they don't know is fatal. This is why evil panics around Sigma males, because it's used to being pursued by people who are blind, emotional, or easily deceived. But the Sigma isn't chasing, it's stalking, quiet, already in position, already loaded with truth. And every question is a silent bullet. The genius of it is that the liar often doesn't realize the setup until it's too late. They think they're controlling the story, steering the narrative, when in reality they're being observed, catalogued, and slowly boxed in. They think they're convincing someone. What they don't know is the person sitting across from them is just letting the performance run long enough to expose every weak point. Sigma males don't ask to be enlightened. They ask to confirm what they already know, extract what's useful, and weaponize the rest later. That's why evil hates their questions, because it's not a dialogue, it's surveillance. And when the trap finally snaps shut, the Sigma isn't surprised. He's already 5 steps ahead, just quietly taking notes. Number 8, they reverse engineer the lie. Most people try to fight lies head on. They argue facts, present evidence, and hope logic will win. It rarely does. Evil doesn't operate on logic. It runs on manipulation, optics, and engineered reality. That's why Sigma males don't waste time pushing against the front of a lie. They go behind it, deep into the mechanics. They reverse engineer the entire illusion. Instead of asking, is this true? They ask, if this is a lie, what would it take to make it look this real? That shift changes everything. The Sigma looks at the final product, the headline, the outrage, the perfectly timed story, and works backwards. He studies how the illusion was built. He dissects the timing, the media rollout, the language used, the emotional triggers attached. He asks, what's the desired outcome here? Who benefits if people believe this? What kind of infrastructure would be needed to spread this so cleanly, so fast? By the time he's done, the lie isn't just exposed, it's mapped. He can see the fingerprints on it, the budget, the marketing, the coordination, and then he asks the only question that really matters. Who had the motive, the resources, and the influence to pull this off? It's never a random mistake. It's never just bad information floating in the void. Real lies, effective, culture-shaping lies, are engineered like products, designed with intent, built to serve someone. And Sigma males expose them by treating them like blueprints, not mysteries. This makes them lethal in any environment where deception rules. Because while everyone else is reacting emotionally, the Sigma is already 10 steps into the machine, tracing the bolts and wires back to their origin. He doesn't just destroy a lie, he reveals its architecture. He turns the illusion into a case study in manipulation, and once he sees how it was built, he knows how to dismantle it, or worse, use it against its creators. That's why evil hates them. Because Sigma males don't believe the performance, they study the stage crew. And once they reverse engineer the illusion, the whole thing stops looking like truth and starts looking like a rigged game with familiar fingerprints all over it. Number 9, they use the devil's language against it. Sigma males don't waste time rejecting the language of evil, they master it. They learn the slogans, decode the buzzwords, and understand how certain terms are engineered to trigger emotion instead of thought. Then, when the timing is perfect, they flip the entire script and turn that same language into a weapon. They don't scream, "That's a lie," because that's predictable. They ask, if this is about freedom, why does it come with facial recognition cameras? Or if this is about safety, why are dissenting voices being silenced? They don't deny the terms, they force the terms to expose their contradictions. This drives evil insane, because the power of propaganda isn't just in repetition, it's in emotional ownership. Evil hijacks words like freedom, equality, science, truth, and turns them into shields, not ideas but weapons. If you question them, you're instantly labeled the enemy. Most people panic when confronted with that kind of social pressure, but not the Sigma. The Sigma leans into it. He'll repeat the slogan, then dissect it in real time. Interesting how unity always means one voice and zero tolerance for questions. Sounds more like obedience, doesn't it? He speaks the language fluently, but his tone is surgical, not celebratory. He forces people to confront the distance between the word and the reality behind it. That's what evil fears most. Someone who knows the incantations and knows their spells. Sigma males don't throw bricks at the fortress. They walk in through the front gate speaking the same language, then point at the foundation and ask, why is this built on control? It disorients the system. It can't label him a lunatic, he's too articulate. It can't label him a threat. He's using its own language, but it knows something's wrong, because suddenly the audience is thinking. The slogans aren't working like they're used to, that's the crack. Sigma males don't reject the devil's language, they repurpose it. Not for rebellion, but for exposure. They make the lie implode under the weight of its own vocabulary. And by the time the mask realizes what's happened, it's already quoting itself into a corner. Number 10, they don't debate morality, they expose utility. Sigma males don't get caught in moral food fights. They know that debates over what's right or wrong are often emotional traps, rigged games where the rules are written by those in power. So they don't argue over principles, they go deeper. They ask, who benefits from this version of morality? And that single question hits harder than any moral argument ever could. Most people are trained from birth to see the world through a moral lens crafted for them by religion, government, media, or culture. It's rarely questioned because questioning it feels like heresy. That's exactly the point. The system doesn't want you to ask why something is good or bad. It wants blind obedience to preset definitions. But the Sigma doesn't care what society labels good. He cares about who gains power when people believe it. He doesn't argue over whether censorship is morally wrong. He asks, who profits when certain voices are silenced? He doesn't shout about whether war is just. He asks, whose stocks go up when bombs fall? He knows morality is often a costume for utility, and evil hides behind that costume like a parasite dressed as a priest. That's what makes the Sigma's questions so dangerous. They don't aim at the surface. They drill straight into the stomach of the machine. And once people start thinking in terms of utility instead of emotional virtue, the game flips. Righteousness starts to look like strategy. Altruism starts to look like marketing. That's when the parasite shows its face. Because every moral panic, every crusade for justice, every new ethical campaign is usually feeding someone's wallet or consolidating someone's control. The Sigma doesn't scream about it. He calmly points and says, this noble cause seems awfully convenient for those in power, doesn't it? And just like that, the spell breaks. By refusing to engage in moral theatrics, Sigma males expose the strings being pulled behind the curtain. They don't fight the illusion, they reveal the puppeteer. Not through judgment, but through ruthless clarity. Because once you stop asking what's right and start asking who benefits, righteousness stops looking so holy and starts looking like a mask for power. Number 11, they ask questions that collapse the room. Sigma males don't ask questions to start debates. They ask questions that end them. Their questions aren't loud, but they carry the weight of a sledgehammer wrapped in silence. They're designed to bypass logic games, emotional distractions, and social niceties. And when dropped at the right moment, they don't just challenge the room, they collapse it. They'll say something simple, almost casual. If we're so free, why do we need a license to do anything meaningful? Or, if this system protects us, why does it punish those who question it? These aren't angry outbursts, they're intellectual detonations. One sentence, no shouting, but the aftershock lingers. Everyone in the room feels it, even if they don't admit it. Because what Sigma males understand is this: people aren't afraid of new ideas. They're afraid of old lies unraveling. And that's exactly what these questions do. They tear through the foundational myths we've all been trained to accept. Myths about freedom, safety, fairness, and morality. Myths that society needs to function, but that fall apart the second you stop nodding and start thinking. Sigma males force that moment of thinking. They ask the thing you're not supposed to say out loud. Not to be provocative, but because it needs to be said. They don't whisper in the back. They drop the question like a guillotine in the middle of the room, and then just wait, calm, still, watching the silence stretch as people scramble for a way to stuff the genie back in the bottle. It never fits. That's what makes these questions so dangerous. They don't aim to change minds through persuasion. They crack minds open through discomfort. They don't dismantle belief systems gently. They pull one thread and let the whole sweater unravel. Because when a Sigma asks, if we're progressing, why do we feel more controlled than ever? There's no easy answer, only cognitive dissonance. Only the sick realization that maybe, just maybe, the story isn't real, the structure isn't neutral, and the freedom we worship is just a branded leash. And once that question hits, the room doesn't recover. It shifts, it fractures, it wakes up. Number 12, they ask one final question. What are you afraid I'll find? This question isn't a casual inquiry, it's a declaration. When a Sigma male asks, what are you afraid I'll find? It's not about curiosity anymore, it's a hunt, a silent war cry whispered in the shadow where deception hides. This is the moment when the game shifts from dialogue to confrontation, from searching to exposing. It cuts deeper than any accusation because it flips the entire power dynamic. Instead of the Sigma begging for answers, the question forces the deceiver to admit that something is being hidden. It forces them to confront their own fear, the fear that beneath the polished lies and crafted narratives, something ugly waits to be uncovered. That question stuns, because it demands vulnerability from the liar, something they're trained to avoid at all costs. They don't just have to lie or twist the truth, they have to acknowledge there's something dangerous lurking beneath their words. And no one wants to admit that. For the Sigma male, this question is the final move in a game played over days, weeks, sometimes years. He's collected inconsistencies, exposed contradictions, and watched the mask crack. Now he pulls the last thread and waits for the unraveling. Evil senses it immediately. It smells the predator behind the words. It knows the trap is closing, and that's when it runs. It flees from the spotlight because it can't face the question without collapsing. This question isn't just about finding truth. It's about stripping away pretense and revealing the raw fear that powers deception. It's the cold, unyielding moment where the hunter becomes visible to the hunted. And when Sigma males ask it, there's no turning back. Because this is more than a question, it's a reckoning. In a world built on illusions, half-truths, and carefully crafted lies, the Sigma male stands apart. Not by following the crowd, but by tearing through the smoke and mirrors with questions that evil fears most. These aren't ordinary questions. They are precision instruments designed to expose, dismantle, and collapse the narratives that keep us all chained to comfortable deceptions. The Sigma doesn't seek easy answers or polite conversations. He hunts for the fractures beneath the surface, using curiosity as camouflage and logic as a scalpel. This relentless pursuit isn't about winning debates or proving points. It's about reclaiming power from the hands of those who manipulate truth to serve their own dark agendas. When the Sigma asks the questions evil doesn't want answered, he doesn't just unsettle the status quo, he shatters it, leaving only raw, undeniable reality in the aftermath. And in that silence, the true game begins. Because the most dangerous weapon isn't violence or noise, it's the fearless question that forces the liar to face what they're desperate to keep hidden. That is the Sigma's domain. That is the battleground where truth wins, or everything else falls apart. If you found these insights as powerful and eye-opening as I intended, don't keep them to yourself. Hit that subscribe button to join the tribe of truth seekers who refuse to settle for illusions. Like the video to let me know you want more of this unfiltered, no-nonsense content. Drop a comment below. What question shook you the most, or which lie are you ready to expose? And share this with anyone who's ready to break free from the lies and see the world as it really is. Together we don't just watch the game, we change it.